As we both agreed that feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality and equity of the sexes, to be able to promote that women can also get a divorce as well as men, I don't think is advocating in favor of cohabitation, and both can be true. I don't think that those are mutually exclusive.
There's better topics to cover, I think.
Do you want
The problem with that is that we're using your metric for what is bad. Under your metric for what is bad is the negative outcomes. There's negative outcomes with those relationships, therefore they are bad.
I already told you that I'm not an inherent consequentialist.
Yeah, I know, but every time I try to get a justification out of you, you just went back to negative outcomes. Otherwise, bad is bad is bad is bad is bad is bad.
Okay, but you can't really quantify the net negative outcome of something that doesn't happen.
Actually, I can quantify the negative net outcome. I can look at what happens to the children who are abused. I can give you the stats from the NIS. I went over all of them yesterday, right here on this very program with a different feminist debater.
So then what you're arguing is against cohabitation, but not against the right to
Unless
get
it's
a divorce.
feminists who are doing everything they can in order to produce the outcomes for marriage and cohabitation.
I mean, I don't know who you're talking to, but I'm
You
not
don't know
doing
who I'm
everything I
talking
can
to?
produce the outcomes against.
Got
like
it.
you can say that cohabitation is bad, but women still deserve a right to divorce a husband that
Okay.
is.
Well, let's move on. We'll move on to the next one. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And we'll do the final internal critique for the debates done. What's the next topic, Brian? Or do you want me to bring one up?
You
Oh,
have
yeah.
something, we could cover differentials when it comes to privilege, male privilege versus female privilege.
What's the question?
Do you believe that do you think male privilege exists?
Yeah, I mean, in a certain sense,
and
yes.
is it greater than female privilege?
I think that we all have inherent privileges, and I think it's important to talk about intersectionality when we talk about privilege. Because,
Yeah, but what's the question is asking specifically, do you think that...
Andrew, you don't let me finish my
Yeah,
statement.
because-
You want me to finish the statement because you don't know where I'm going with it?
Yes or no, do men have more privilege in society?
I think some men do, yes. But again, like I would think that a disabled man probably has less privilege than a able-bodied woman, depending on what his disability is.
If we were to take all women and put them collective as a group and all men collective as a group, would you say that men are more advantaged or have privileges over women, or that women are privileged and have advantages over men?
Yeah, I would say collectively, men probably have more privileges.
Okay,
than women.
so now we understand exactly what it is that we're arguing. So
Yes.
let me just start with this. What about the draft?
What about the draft?
So how is it that men are privileged over women when men can be drafted and women cannot?
Well, that would be an example of when women have a privilege over men. I don't think the draft should apply to anyone, though. To be
But it
honest, I
does
think the
apply
draft
to men,
I know,
right?
and I don't even think we should have a draft.
But
I think
we do have
that
a
is
draft.
inherently immoral as well.
Yeah, but we do have a draft. We do, descriptively.
I know, and we should.
And how could it be that men, young men especially, can be drafted at the age of 18, 19, 20 years old, be sent to fight wars often on behalf of women who can vote them into those wars, right? How is that a privilege that men have? And what is if you had to pick anything that you could point to for women that is on par with that duty that men have, I want to hear what it is.
I would say probably the societal role of the traditional wife and the inability for certain women, or the promotion of an idea that women should not be allowed to work.
Who promotes that women should not be allowed to work?
You do.
No, I don't.
So you think that women should be allowed to work?
Women have always been able to work.
And you think that outside of the home?
Yeah, of course they've always been able to work outside the home.
Hey, that's great.
What does that have to do with anything?
I mean, part of the whole manosphere and like the promotion of these social norms and social roles.
That's where you're wrong. You see,
Really?
Actually, you have the more misogynistic view.
No, but I'm against
You have the more
that.
misogynistic view. The truth is that what the manosphere would say is that a lot of them say, no, those women need to fucking work. Otherwise, they're in a position of privilege being at home. So let me ask you this. Are women in a position
What
of privilege?
manosphere podcaster is saying
Oh, you
that?
hear them say it all the time. Are women in a position
Really?
of privilege?
Candace Owens
Hang
isn't
on,
saying
stop,
that. Myron Gaines isn't saying that.
Yeah, they do. But here's
Andrew
the
Tate is
thing.
not saying
I'll,
that.
I'll demonstrate it for
None
you.
of them are
Are
saying
women
that.
in a position of privilege when they're stay-at-home moms?
No.
Are they in a position of privilege when they're working?
Unless I think that they're in a position of equality or equity. That's the goal.
But so then that would mean, by that logic, they're oppressed by being stay-at-home moms.
I think that if they are not using their free will to decide whether or not they're a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, they're a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
Are they privileged or not privileged? Is it a privilege to be a stay-at-home mom, or is it not a privilege to be a stay-at-home mom? Or is it a privilege for women to work, or is it not a privilege to work?
I think it depends circumstantially. If a stay-at-home mom is choosing and has her free will to be a stay-at-home mom, and that is an arrangement that she made with her husband, who would also like to do that, then it can be, yes. But if a woman does not have the right to make that choice, and if you are, proposing a society in which we follow strict gender rules and societal rules in which
but gender norms show women always working, always having worked.
Yes.
The idea is gender norms, what they don't show is that it's a good idea for women to take their reproductive years in work outside of the home. That's stupid. That makes no sense. Yes, of course.
How do you establish yourself in a career if you actively have a child at home?
You establish yourself in a career after your childbearing years, like everybody else would.
So you have to start work at 40?
Versus having children at 40?
But you don't have. You can do both, though. You can.
But
have
here's the
children
thing.
and
This is what's so funny.
Establish a career.
Do you think then that if moms split their attention between their children and their career, that their children are going to get as much attention as they would if the mom didn't have a career?
But why should a mother not have the ability to have a career
For
if
their
she-
children.
Well, then just don't have children. if you
They
don't
would
want
do
them.
right, exactly. This is my point, though, right? It's like, so why
Dude,
wouldn't
but
you?
women make up 47% of the labor force. Literally millions of women
Yeah.
do this every day.
Yeah, and you know what happens? Our birth rate. Do you know what it's at?
It's a lot lower, significantly.
Why?
Because women are having kids older. But that's free will. You can't just usurp someone's right to have free will because their job is to have a
So let me
baby.
ask you, is it a negative thing that the birth rate is declining to the point where we can't even sustain our population?
Well, we could if we'd allow immigrants to come in. But
Wait. So you want to replace the population?
no, I'm not a replacement theorist. But at
You
the
want to
same
replace
time,
the population?
Can we go back?
No.
to-
Can you answer the question? If it is the case that our population's massively decreasing, which you just conceded it is, because women are having children older, which you just conceded they are,
Sure.
and you say that's a good thing,
I'm not saying
and then
that's
say it wouldn't go down if we had immigrants come in. How's that not replacing the population?
I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I don't understand what your solution is. Should women not be allowed to work until
It's
after
your
they've had
internal
children?
critique time now. Tell me
Should
real quick.
women not be allowed to
Tell
work
me real quick
until they've had children?
Why are you asking me questions of answering them now? It's my turn to ask the question. So
Why is that? Who
Because
said
you
that?
just
We're having an open discussion.
you just internally critiqued, and I allowed you for over an hour at least my position, my turn. So real quick, can you
sure.
tell me why it is that when you get to the point where you cannot replace your own population, and you say, well, we wouldn't have a problem with that if we opened it up to immigrants, how is that not you advocating for replacement?
I'm not advocating for complete replacement. I'm not saying people should just stop working and stop having children and it should be entirely up to immigrants. But I mean, if we did have more channels for immigrants to come into this country legally, we might
Would
not be
that
so worried about the
replace the
population.
domestic population?
What's the problem with doing that, though?
What, don't.
I mean,
would
are we
it,
not all humans?
Would it replace the domestic population?
It wouldn't completely replace it.
Would it mostly replace it?
It would add. Why is it replace? It's adding. It's
Because if the
addition.
people who are okay, let me ask you this: is it a good thing that Native Americans don't have a lot of kids?
Why aren't they having kids?
Well, is it a good thing that they are or are not? Would you rather see Native Americans having more kids?
I mean, I don't.
Like, why is it a bad thing
What?
that we came over here and took land from the Native Americans and replaced their population? Why is that bad?
Well, because we killed millions of people and caused
no,
significant
well,
amounts
no,
of
no.
suffering.
Actually,
it was human suffering. It was a genocide.
Actually, most
I mean,
of
what
most
do you-
hang on,
like,
most of
what do you
what
mean,
killed
why is genocide bad?
most of what killed Native Americans was not genocide; it was disease.
The Trail of Tears killed millions of people.
Okay, that actually no, the Trail of Tears didn't kill millions of people.
Yes, it did.
How many millions do you think died in the Trail of Tears?
Let's Google it.
Google it.
All right.
How many millions died at the Trail of Tears?
It says an estimated 4,000 out of 16,000 Cherokee people, or wait, forced to relocate. Let me see deaths.
How many millions?
It says estimate that 6,000 men, women, and children die on the 1,200-mile march called the Trail of Tears, Cherokee.
Okay.
So is 6,000 anywhere close to millions?
So let's just look at
and
colonization.
millions.
How many Native American people were killed from colonization? Can you Google that one for me?
Yeah, disease.
How
no,
many
no,
Native
no.
Amer-
How many
no,
were
no,
killed
no.
by disease?
How many Native
Millions.
Americans killed by...
Colonization. It's millions of people.
No, disease killed them. Disease killed the overwhelming amount of
You
Native
know that
Americans.
we used chemical warfare, or not we.
Oh, we did, huh?
Yes.
So we didn't understand anything about how diseases worked, but we were able to use diseases for chemical warfare, huh?
What do you mean we didn't understand how disease
you
works?
like?
When do
I
you
never said
think?
that.
When do you think we understood the disease process?
You know that smallpox blankets that were infected with smallpox,
Total
were
myth.
given and gifted to. No,
How-
it's not.
how- do
No,
you-
the fuck it's not.
Okay,
Bullshit,
let me ask you a
Andrew. That's
question.
not a myth.
You get sick,
Yeah.
and you don't understand how the disease process works because science hasn't discovered it yet. And then you hand a blanket that sick people have used to another person, not
Will
understanding
you fact check that one too, Brian?
Check it.
Yes.
Which one?
Okay,
smallpox-
wait. First of all, how many millions were
Check
killed
the
due to
smallpox
colonization?
myth.
Get that one first.
In the United States, in North
the
America,
US.
or the
In North
entire
America.
Americas?
Ooh, actually,
including-
if we did,
You're
include
just
the entire
goalpost
Americas.
shifting.
I mean, but that's not true. I said that millions
you
of people
said
were
millions
killed
of
through
people
colonization.
died during the Trail of Tears.
Okay.
Stop lying.
All right, then let's include all
Holy
of the
shit, stop lying. And also, check. All you have
But
to
the
do
whole
is
point
check
that
the
you
disease.
said is that Native Americans
all you
were
have to
killed.
do is check the disease rates. It was 80 to 90% of all natives died from diseases. And by the way, the
question that
smallpox
you were
blankets,
asking-
the smallpox blankets happened hundreds of
Andrew,
years after
calm down.
colonization.
Calm down. The question
The
that you were
smallpox
asking.
blankets happened hundreds of years post colonization.
The question
Hundreds.
that you were asking, let's fact check that. But while you're doing that, the question that you were asking is, was the colonization of the Americas bad? And I'm saying, yes, it was, because it resulted in the deaths of millions of people.
Got it. So if the outcome, and that would be a negative outcome, right?
Yes.
So
oh
if
my
Jap-
God, why is my
if
entire family calling
Japan
me?
if Japan wants to keep itself Japanese, is that negative?
For what purpose?
Because they just want to be Japanese
How are they doing that?
by not letting in any immigrants.
Are immigrants coming to their country and are they detaining them in cages? and
Very,
sending them out?
very few are ever allowed to come in. Yes, very few.
I mean, if they're not physically hurting or endangering those people, then I wouldn't say that's necessarily a negative. But I think it depends on the outcome for the Japanese population.
So
as
if
well.
the Japanese, let's just say that they only wanted their domestic population to be Japanese, there's nothing inherently wrong with that.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Can I answer the question? If there's a net negative that happens when the Japanese population self-isolates, then I do think that there's something inherently wrong with that. But I think it's hard to quantify how negative that is to that population.
So, like, if the Japanese were isolating themselves and
Yes.
their birth rate was decreasing, you
Yes.
would consider that to be negative.
Yes, if they were losing population, if they were losing a labor force because of self-isolation, if people were starving and people could not make enough money because of
Well, they
self-isolation.
weren't just they're not starving,
Well,
but
I
they're
guess,
just
yeah.
not reproducing.
If people aren't reproducing and they're incapable of reproduction or,
They're capable of it, they're just not.
yeah, I mean, if it is hurting that population, then I would say that's a net negative.
Okay,
for
so
sure.
then if white people aren't reproducing, is that hurting their population?
It depends. Do they want to reproduce?
It's seemingly the like primary edict is reproduction, right?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so then if white people are not reproducing, that's harmful to white people's population.
Well, if the primary edict is reproduction, then why aren't they reproducing?
Well, because they defer what's happened is there has been a massive campaign to defer all women's childbearing years for college years. This is in every industrial country we look at.
So what are you structurally
I'm
advocating
asking you
for?
this question. I'm asking you, is it inherently bad that white people aren't reproducing?
No, if they have,
So is it inherently bad, like you just said, that the Japanese people aren't reproducing?
I guess no. If they're
So then
exercising
why-
their free will. But
What
this
the
is the point.
fuck? How is it
Andrew.
bad if the Japanese don't reproduce, but it's bad if they don't, but it's not bad if white people don't?
No, I'm not saying it's bad if either group does.
But
What
you
I'm
just
saying
did.
is it depends on the effects to that population and why they're not reproducing. If they're not reproducing as an exercise of free will,
Gotcha.
and they are happier without reproducing, then why is that negative?
So if we were to look at like the mental health outcomes of women who reproduced versus those who didn't, which group would you say would be happier?
I'm not sure. Which group do you say would be happier?
Well,
Statistically, which group is happier?
what the group that's statistically happier are women who reproduce and have children.
Okay, but again, that's the whole causation correlation thing, and it feels like
The thing is like everything you can say is a causation, right? We look for the primary causation for what is the correlation. We even do this with things like drinking and driving, right? So
Yeah.
I could always say, no, it just correlates that drinking in your car leads to more accidents, right? But if it is the case that that's the primary correlate, then we tend to say it's because drinking and driving, these accidents increase.
Okay.
That's how you would do it. Hang
All
on.
right, so
if
let's
that's the
say-
case, I'm just asking you again the question, right? When you say, oh, it's just correlation, causation. If the primary correlation is that they're having children and that's what makes them happier, and that women who don't have children are less happy, then wouldn't you say that's a negative outcome?
Yes, I would say that's a negative.
Okay.
But I do just want to ask, so let's say that that is a negative outcome. What is your solution? Do you think women should not be allowed to go to college? Do you think women should?
I would just advocate for a national campaign which asks women to keep the traditional family intact because it's going to lead to the most amount of children, and to defer those college age years, just like we did a national campaign to try to move women into college. I would do a national campaign to say defer those years for childbearing, and you can always go to college later after your kids are grown, or you can do it from
Oh,
home.
that's not fun. That's not the point of college. Did you go to college?
The point of college is to go fuck?
No.
What's the point?
The point of college is to learn while you are young so that you can gain skills that help you in the workforce and develop a career over time. It takes time to develop a career. You can't just do that whenever.
You can develop first of all, most of the people are getting degrees, by the way. They ain't using those fucking degrees in any of those fields, are they? What's your degree going to be in? What's it going to be in?
Fucking your mom. No, I'm joking. Film production.
And do you think that you're going to end up a film producer?
Hopefully. That's the goal.
But I mean, do you think that the chances that most people who have a degree in film production are producing film?
I mean, I happen to go to the best film school in the country, but, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure
just
a lot
like
of people
I just
aren't.
had a woman I
But-
talked to yesterday who got a degree in comedy writing.
Oh, well, sorry.
Or psychology or sociology. These fields are completely oversaturated.
But these skills are still useful, and we also know that.
Oversaturated.
But we also know that people, on average, who get a college degree, the median income for those people is higher.
Yeah, but guess what? The negative effects mentally much higher than if they don't have children. They're college educated.
So your plan is to usurp people's free will.
How are
on
you
their
usurping it by
behalf.
having a campaign just asking people to defer?
Okay, and then if they choose not to do that, what
They
happens?
can choose, but then
Okay.
here's the thing: it was extraordinarily.
Then do that. Have fun.
It was extraordinarily effective to have the propaganda which said that women should be going to college. If you look at the college rates pre the propaganda, post it, right? You can see that it had a great effect. You could have the same type of effect which asked women to defer that for childbearing years because they're happier, more well adjusted. And guess what you would be promoting then? The old school gender roles.
Women fought an entire, I mean, not fought physically, but women had many movements on the basis of demanding the right to choose whether or not they go to college and when. Why would we do that if we didn't
First
want
of all-
Are you saying that the feminist revolution is a propaganda
first of all,
movement?
when it came to college, it was
I mean,
real.
there's currently more women in college
When
than
it
men.
came
If
to
we
college,
didn't want to be here,
so when
why
it
would
came
we
to
be?
college, there was very few. There was these Ivy League colleges. There was very few colleges ever, and most men never went to college either. That's the truth. Almost nobody ever went to college. It was about the best and the brightest. And what's happened is we've lowered the deviated standards so anybody can fucking go to college. Now it's become a requirement for an entry-level job to go to college, which is insane.
But that's an issue with capitalism. That's
It's not an issue with
feminism.
capitalism.
Yes,
It's
it
an
is.
issue with
Hold
stupid
on, just one
feminist
moment.
propaganda.
It's not feminist
Just a moment.
propaganda.
Just a moment. I need to do a quick sidebar with both of you really quick. So viewers, we're going to take a 20, 30-second intermission. Just stay tuned. Hold on for just a moment.
What do we do?
Oh, no, you guys didn't do anything. One moment, guys.
Okay,
I'm gonna
yeah.
let some chats come through while we're doing that. We're just seeing if we're going to be able to increase the length of the debate for just a bit here, since we are closing in on the end here. We have Pasty George with a message. Hey, Pasty, thank you.
Pasty George donated $200.
Thank you, man.
Ultimately, feminism had to rely on men
So
for
did
physical
you.
force, even to open
My
a glass
argument is
jar.
that men rely on physical force of men too.
So then
Pasty,
what's to stop
appreciate
a
it.
man who's stronger than you from removing your physical force? Why is he not?
Nothing. That's what force doctrine is. Like, you
Guys,
still don't get it.
Last call if you want to get the message in. $200 TTS, pull it up,
That just doesn't
streamlabs.com/whatever.
understand. That doesn't make, like, why are our leaders not the strongest people
Hold
in the
on,
world?
one more if you guys pay
Pasty
attention to this
George
one.
donated $200.
Thank you, Pasty George.
It's estimated
Thank
that
you.
approximately 90% of the indigenous population in the Americas, or about 55 million people, died during the colonization period.
Continued.
Continued. Yeah.
Do we want to see the rest? How do we see
Yes.
the rest?
Yeah, it's going to come
gonna
in
pop
just
up.
10 seconds. Pasty George, thank you for the message. If you guys want to get your own message here as we are getting ready to wrap up the stream, streamlabs.com/whatever, $200 TTS, get them in.
Pasty George donated $200.
Thank you, Pasty.
This drastic population decline is attributed to a combination of factors, including disease,
Forced displacement, and violence.
In Canada, a similar pattern of population decline occurred.
So it is true that violence and forced displacement did kill a lot of Native Americans. I'm not disputing that.
Yeah.
What I am saying, though, is that disease killed the overwhelming amount of the Native population.
By the way, did we ever get the results on whether or not smallpox?
The smallpox blankets.
Also, I don't. If he's not going to answer, we are gonna drive up to Northern Cali, so I probably can't stay if I'm being honest.
Well,
I
just
would
keep an
love to
eye on
share.
your phone, and if he gives you an
Okay.
answer, he gives you an answer. We'll do, in that case, here's what we're going to do. Oh, Mary, can I have you, hold on, I'll send you a private chat, Mary. Give us a moment, guys, while we're just figuring out a few things here.